Hey, Maureen. Can you hear me? Who else is here? Yeah, you should be connected now, Maureen. Give me a little message, say hello. This is my phone here. I'm reading my messages here, so I don't have to get out of shot. So I think we'll. There's 4 people. Okay, welcome everybody. So where we're going to start today is I want to have 2 basic conversations, but then if you throw in questions, we'll see where it takes us. I'm doing a mix of conversation and like a workshop style, where I'm showing you the what of something, but then also the how of it. So I'm not trying to take you through a practice as if it was like a class. I want to explain the nuts and bolts of it. So we're taking the time to tease it out here, so that when you go off into your own practice, is you can tease it out and get more into it, yeah. And you can look at the video, you can look back at the video, review it, and go step by step. So 2 of the things we're going to talk about today, one is centering and how to center and find your center of gravity, and then the other is a conversation between how do you shift from a doing state of mind to a being state of mind. And the reason why I'm bringing in these 2 topics, but the way things are at the moment, a lot of people are at home. A lot of people are even if you're working from home, or if you're working, you come home, you got to stay home. So there's a lot of restriction. A lot of people are indoors a lot. So coming into your center and coming into your active center allows you to stay a little bit more grounded and engaged in that restriction, rather than shutting down or going crazy on the videos. There's other things that can be done, other practices, yoga as an example. Then another thing is we're at home. This is my phone, by the way. So this allows me to check the messages, and at the same time not come out of the shot. Yeah. The other conversation then is about the doing. So a lot of people are much more restricted in their doing. So if you're off work and you got to stay home, here's your scale of what you normally do, the range of what you normally do, and then we're stuck in this tight space of doing where we can do a lot less. We're restricted. So that gives a lot more time to explore then the being. So what is the difference between the doing and the being? And then how do you transition from one to the other? That's part of the challenge. And again, is when the doing is reduced, when you increase your sense of being in your day, it changes the quality of your experience. So it's this isolation that we're in. It's a great opportunity to explore your space, explore your inner space, and to redefine your interpretation of how you hold your space and your perception of it. How do you come into that lovely being in yourself and stay grounded into it, stay connected into it? And that means you've got to stay actively in your center of gravity. So I'm going to talk you through that today at a physical level, with the breath at an energetic level, and then at a mental level with the mind. And then as you throw out questions, that'll bring it into then the everyday experience. So whatever your questions are, we'll tease it out. So now I'm going to check. There's 11 people on. Can somebody say hello or something? Because loud and clear. Thanks, Maureen. I'm trying to use my phone here to see the chats. There we are. Hi, Una. Hello. Okay, so again, this is my first proper live session. I did a test session last week, so this is my first proper live one. I'm getting used to having the chats, and at the same time, my phone, I'm checking out. Hello. Oh, found it. Who's that? Is that Janet? Hey, Janet. J-O. I think it's Janet. How are you anyway? Okay, so let's start. So first thing I'm going to start with is the centering, and I'm going to talk as if you're doing it, whether you're sitting down or whether you're standing and doing it. I'm going to talk as if you're doing it, yeah? So what I want you to do is basically stand with your feet 4 to 6 inches apart. Now, if you want to get more clear in the width of your feet, if you put your thumbs at the crease at the top of your thigh and you put your fingers around the side here, is what you're feeling is your ball and socket joint. So now if you follow your ball and socket joint down, here's your knee, all the way down to your second toe, and that's your basic alignment from the ball and socket joint all the way down through your hip joint, your knee joint, your ankle joint, all the way through to your feet. So about 4 to 6 inches apart. That's the general way of it, yeah? Now you're looking to avoid 10 to 2s, but a little bit is your natural stance. So don't worry about that. You got to be like a railway one, because that's not natural. It's not natural. So a little bit out is absolutely fine. It's part of your natural stance. Okay. So who else we got here now? There's Quiva. Hey, Quiva. Is it Janet? J.O. Janet, is that you? Have a J.O. Confirm it's you. Okay. Okay. So now we're planting our feet. So what I want you to do is slightly soften your knees. Now I'm going to bend them a lot. You're not bending your knees like this. You don't need to bend them so much. You're not hyperextending the knees back. You're ever so slightly putting a slight bend on the knee where it frees up. It frees up your knee joint. It gives you mobility. You'll notice when you slightly soften your knee, you naturally start to sway. And that little soft knee, it brings your weight down into your feet. So you're going to feel your weight more coming into the soles of your feet. And then what I want you to begin to do, the hands down by the side, is you turn them out a little bit if you like, is I'm going to get you to begin to sway around the 4 corners of your feet. So the smallest little sway that allows you to sway around the little toe, to the big toe, to the inside of your heel, to the outside of your heel. Now it's just the smallest sway that lets you sway around the 4 corners of both feet. So you're not having to sway like you're on a ship. It's not like that. You're not challenging your edges. You're rolling around the 4 corners of your feet with your knees ever so slightly soft. And in that is you're beginning to feel your weight sink a little bit more into your feet and then spread out. You're going to feel the tone of your feet more, the muscles in your feet more. And just settle into that for a moment. And that just gives you a lovely sense of grounding down, rooting through your feet into the floor. But at the same time, notice how active it is. You're coming into your active balance. Now, as you go along and you keep doing it, you're going to begin to notice that you have a certain tone in your legs. So you're going to feel the tone in your calves. You'll feel a bit in your shins. You'll feel it in your thighs. You'll feel it in your inner thighs, your hamstrings, your glutes. If you keep your pelvis a little level, you should even feel it in your pelvic floor and your core a little bit. And what you're feeling is a tone in your muscle. Now notice, I'm not asking you to tense the muscles. I'm just asking you to sway around the 4 corners of your feet. And in that, your muscles spontaneously tone. And you're just letting yourself sway around the 4 corners and just feeling the tone in your legs. And getting a sense of it. Now you'll notice that there's 2 things going on with that tone. One is you feel the tone, and it's like it's flowing around in a circle. And then the next thing you feel is the release. So as I sway more onto one leg, the muscles on the other leg release. As I sway onto the left leg, the muscles on my right leg release a little bit. So I've got these 2 sensations going on as I sway. One is a sense of tone increasing, and then a sense of tone decreasing. And what I'm coming into is the spontaneous engagement of my balance. My muscles are naturally toning and releasing as they need to so that I can stay in my center of gravity and that I'm naturally flowing in it. So notice not once do you need to actually tense a muscle. There's no requirement to tense any muscles. You're just letting yourself naturally sway around the four corners of your feet, and spontaneously your muscles tone and release. So you're coming into your center, but then your center is active, so you got to come into your center of gravity at the same time. That's your fluid center. So let me just check what's going on here now. There's Cleve. Yeah, that's Janet. There's Anne. Hi Anne, how you going? So now along the way, if you've got any questions, just fire it in and I'll see it and I'll respond to it, yeah? So now you're swaying through the four corners of your feet. You're getting into your active balance. Now notice the pace that you move at. The pace that you move at is very steady and very easy. So what I want you to do is bring a bit of awareness into your breath. I want you to breathe a little into your navel, a little to the intercostal muscles in your rib cage, and a little bit to your upper chest. So don't worry about the depth of it. Is whatever the breath is, feel a little bit of movement here, a little bit of movement here, and a little bit of movement here. On the inhale and the exhale, on both. And what you're doing is you're using your full lung, but it doesn't have to be the full capacity of your lung all the time. So whether it's a shallow breath, a medium breath, or a deep breath, is those three areas can be felt. Your lower lungs pushing down, your middle lungs pushing out, and your upper lungs pushing up a little bit. Okay? Now notice, as you breathe, is the pace of your breath begins to mimic the pace of your sway. Okay? And how you do that is as you inhale, as you exhale, notice it's like a pendulum, inhaling in and exhaling out. And as you sway from foot to foot, it's like a pendulum. And that as you sync up your breath and your body at the same time, you find yourself beginning to breathe your center of gravity. And you're just connecting to that internal tone of the muscles of your lungs, and then the internal tone of your body. So you're going to feel the trunk of your body a little bit more. As you sway, you feel the obliques, the side, you'll feel the abdominals a little bit, you'll feel your lower back a little bit. So what you're doing is that you're now beginning to draw the tone of your body. You're drawing it up through your body as you sway deeper into your center of gravity and your center. You're bringing all your body into the one movement and having it all moving together. It's super duper. But keep your breath. Now we're going to go a little bit more into the upper body. So notice your hands. What I want you to do is make your fingers straight and a little bit apart. And that creates a tone in your hands. And that tone begins to flow through your forearms, up into your upper arm and into your shoulder. Now the tone that you're putting into your hand, I want you to mimic the tone in your feet. So use your intuition. So whatever you think the tone in your feet is, tone your hands to mimic it. And whatever you think it is, that's right. Now hold that tone in your hands and begin to breathe a little deeper into the intercostal muscles. Open up your rib cage more. Okay, and that's going to give you a greater sense of breath, and it begins to activate your upper body more, your rib cage, your upper chest, across your shoulders, and again, down between the shoulder blades. You're activating, grounding your upper body. You get a nice sense of release. And let me explain that release a little bit more. So you're breathing, you're inhaling and you're exhaling, navel, rib cage, upper chest. Notice, again, breathe at your own pace. When your rib cage expands a little bit, it also floats up. It creates a greater tone in the trunk, the obliques, the abdominals, the lower back, It all tones just that little bit more. Your lower spine lengthens a little bit more. So the space between your hips and your rib cage increases, and you get that lovely lengthening in your spine. And you really begin to feel that you're flowing around the center of gravity of your spine itself. So you're getting into the muscles, you're getting into the joints. Now you begin to get into the central nervous system. You get that lovely energetic feeling from the practice. Notice how nice it feels, how calming it is, because it's grounding. This is you're grounding yourself, but at the same time, is you're coming into your center of gravity, and while you're grounding your physical body, you're also grounding your energetic body. It's actually very, very soothing. And you'll notice that your pace you're moving at is incrementally, is your mind, your thoughts start to move at the same pace as your physical center of gravity, as your energetic flow in your breath, your thoughts begin to move at the same pace. And in that, they slow down, they begin to center, you're focusing less on the thought, and you're coming more into your awareness. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So your rib cage is expanding, floating up. You get a nicer sense of tone, deeper sense of tone, deeper energetic experience in the trunk of your body. Remember the fingers and the arms. Now, as you breathe to your upper chest expands a little bit. Your collarbones are going to come up slightly. That's going to take your shoulders away from your ears. That's going to let the shoulder blades sit back onto your expanded rib cage. And in that, you get a lovely release across the back of the neck. And then the base of the neck begins to lengthen up through the neck, up through to the base of the skull. You get a lovely sense of lengthening of your neck. And again, right up through your skull, pow, right up. You're getting that lovely root and rise that people talk about in the yoga practice. Now you're breathing and you're swaying through the four corners of your feet. You're swaying internally in your inner center of gravity. Just follow that nice sensation now. You don't need to think about it all. It's just follow what feels nice. And you're in the energetic body, in the energetic flow. And then just for a minute or two, close your eyes and just let yourself just sway in that. Don't think about it. Just follow what feels right. Okay? And see how you get on. Now I'm going to check a couple of questions while you're doing that. There's Fergal. Hey, Fergal. Welcome. There's Anna. Hey, Anna. Welcome. Okay. And again, any questions along the way, fire out your questions and I'll answer them. So you're in this lovely sway. And your eyes closed. And notice that the pace of the sway and the pace of your breath, they're moving in synchronicity. And then start to notice that calming effect it has on your mind. Is, if you think about it this way, is rather than trying to change your thoughts or control your thoughts, all you do is just slow the pace of your thoughts down. So when all of your body is swaying together, when your breath is flowing together with your body, it has a direct effect on your mind, that your thoughts just begin to slow down. You get a sense of calmness in the thoughts. Not once are you trying to stop a thought or get rid of a thought, but you find that the tension begins to release out of the thoughts, that you're moving into it, like the tone in the body, is you're moving into a tone of awareness within yourself, that the watcher in yourself becomes a little bit more prevalent, the listener, the feeler, that you're just drawing yourself back to your mental center, which is awareness itself. There's still the thoughts, but the thoughts are just, give them the space to just move around your mind, but you're just bringing yourself back to the awareness within the center of it. Like all the sensations in your body. There's all the sensations in the body, but then you're not trying to control those sensations. You're not trying to decide what each sensation is. You're just letting yourself sway around the sensations in your body. So now treat all your thoughts like they're sensations, and just let yourself sway around your mind, but doing it with awareness. That's really, really nice. Okay, any more questions? Okay. Now, if you're doing this in your practice at home, stick on a bit of music. A bit of music is lovely. And again, depending on the mood or the energy you're in, sometimes it can be very soothing and calm. Other times it can have a bit of a beat in it. Now, depending on the mood, put on the music that just lets you come into yourself that little bit more, and just come into that lovely sway, come into that flow, and just centering yourself physically, energetically, and then mentally. So now, to continue the conversation, is what would happen if you stayed in your physical center as your normal state, and that you stayed in your center of gravity? Now, if you think about the importance of this, you come into a yoga class or you go do a yoga session. A lot of people talk about being centered. Okay, so the centering is easy in the sense of you connect to the ground, but it's your center of gravity. It's attuning to your center of gravity is where the organic aliveness of your center is at all times, without exception. At all times, your center is fluid, it's active. So it's your center of gravity that you're looking for, not just to be centered. Because sometimes being centered can seem like it's passive. It's not passive. It's continuously engaging. So now notice how nice it feels. Is what would allow you to stay continuously engaged all the time. If being centered always felt like a chore, it just seems like homework. It just seems like a struggle all the time. But you actively being in your center of gravity, and the feelings that you get from it, the sensations that you get from it, give you far more than the effort that you're putting in. Sure, who wouldn't want to be there all the time? Do you understand? It just takes a bit of practice. And all you got to do is feel your feet, slightly soften your knee, let yourself sway, come into a bit of breath, and you could be doing this in every room of your life. In the supermarket, again, I know we're isolated at the moment, but any room that you go into normally, is you can be doing a little bit of this sway and nobody would even know. Nobody would even know. But what you're doing is you're staying actively connected. When you do this, it's a lovely anchor. It's a beautiful anchor to keep yourself in your breath awareness. Because again, having to think about my breath all the time, again, can seem like a chore. It's a hard thing to do. It's subtle. How do I get into this? I got to put so much effort into focusing on it. But if you stay in your sway, all you got to do is one thing with your breath, is be willing to slow it down a little bit. A nice way to describe it. Any questions? Now, fire me out questions if you have. As a kid, you're on your bicycle and you're freewheeling down the hill, and the thrill and the excitement of freewheeling down the hill, it's exhilarating. Everybody, I think, has had that experience or understands that experience. But then you're freewheeling down the hill, but then it gets that little bit too fast, and we get a little bit afraid. So what we do is we start tapping on the brake, and we tap on the brake to get to that point where we can freewheel and feel the exhilaration of it, but at the same time stay in control of the speed so that we don't get afraid. And we're following that edge, that line, and we just feel the freedom of it. That's beautiful. So now this is what I'm saying to you about your breath and the flow of your breath. Is like the freewheeling down the hill, be willing to tap on the brake of your breath just enough to slow it down a little bit. Because that willingness to continually slow it down, it naturally draws you more into your navel, into your rib cage, and into your upper chest. You don't have to constantly keep thinking about it and thinking about, am I doing this? Am I doing that? The willingness to slow it down a little bit will open up your experience of your breath for you, and what you experience and understand comes to you. You don't go searching for it. It just comes to you. Oh, I'm breathing more in my ribcage. Oh, I'm breathing more in my upper chest. Oh God, I can really feel my breath releasing out my neck. My lower back isn't so tight. You start to notice these little things because you're in your center of gravity. You're breathing into it. If you've got tight joints, the joints become a little bit more mobile. So you start to feel a little freer. And you're not trying to open the joint. It's just the very nature of your center of gravity and being fluid and open in it spontaneously opens your joint as you go about your day. Literally, what you're doing is the space you're holding does all the work for you. And then as you release, your release comes to you. So these little things that you do, the smallest little thing, think about the biggest effect that it can have on you. So staying active in your center of gravity, the rewards are enormous, and they come to you in little presents all the time, little moments of insight, little gifts of release. And it just feels really, really nice. And at what point do you come into your body where just staying in your active balance becomes your default? It feels so good. You've got to a point where you're now, there's like the 4 stages of learning. You're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know that you don't know. So like the child doesn't know about driving a car, so they don't know that they don't know. Then as the child gets a bit older and they start to play with cars and dinkies, then they become consciously competent. Now they know they can't drive a car. So the child hits teenage years and starts to drive. So then they become consciously competent. When they think about it, they can drive the car. And then after a while, we become unconsciously competent, is we can do it without thinking. So you want to get to a point where being in your active balance, your center of gravity, you become unconsciously competent in it. It's just a place that you reside in. And that place is wonderful because a huge amount of insight comes. Think about it from a mental point of view. You're moving at a pace that allows you to think in your mind, to think about whatever it is you need to think about in the way that you need to think about it. And the reason being is because you're holding the center of your awareness, and in that, it gives you lots of space in your mind. So it frees you up to allow the thoughts just to spontaneously flow. When you allow your thoughts to spontaneously flow, they go to where they need to go. You're giving them freedom to figure themselves out, rather than constantly trying to control them all the time. So what you're doing is you're controlling your center, and you're allowing your thoughts to figure themselves out. And as they figure themselves out, insight comes to you. You start to put things together that you haven't seen before. You never noticed that connection, but it's coming to you rather than you trying to control your thoughts and then rigidly going searching for stuff. It's just a different approach. What you're doing is you're working from the inside out, and you're coming from your natural center of gravity at a physical level, at an energetic level, at a mental level. Is you're finding that place of residence that you reside in within yourself. You're essentially coming into your home, the home of your body, your emotional home, your mental home. If I say this about the emotional home, what do I mean by that? You inhale and you exhale. And in between both are a pause. There's a moment of transition where you pause. So it's like a pendulum. And at each end of the pendulum, there's a moment of pause, and then the direction changes. So when you open up your breath, you come into your breath awareness, and then you come nice and calmly to the pause at the end of your exhale. In that pause, you get a lovely sense of calmness. You come to a place of feeling. So when you come to that place of feeling, that's your emotional centering. As opposed to if you feel something and you're fighting with it, that fight with it is your emotions. You're emoting, you're pushing and you're pulling. where when you come to the pause at the end of your exhale, you're grounding yourself into feeling itself. So what does it feel like to energetically ground into yourself? It feels, it's feeling itself. So when your baseline experience is feeling, just feeling itself, then you can measure off everything else that you feel from a place of calmness. But if you don't have that baseline of feeling of calmness, then all the emotions just play off each other. And then it becomes a competition. And we get caught up in the control of that competition rather than coming to our energetic grounding, our center, energetically flowing in that beautiful connection in our breath, that feeling that just feels lovely. And in that, we're observing the play of our emotions. And we're looking to settle them so we can get the clarity of what it is that we're feeling, our intuitive sense of what's going on. There's the physical, the visceral, then there's intuitive, getting into the emotional, and then there's the mental, and again, coming into the mental intuitiveness as well, is getting the clarity of awareness. But it comes to you. It comes to your center. You just got to let yourself actively stay engaged in it. I'm waffling on now. I'm in my buzz. I'm waffling on. I've said a huge amount. So now, unless you have any questions about that, I'm going to move on to the next topic because it's already 6:30. So does anybody have a question? 17 people here. Does anybody have a question? Okay, I'll keep going. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, and this relates to what we're already doing. It very much relates to it. It's the difference between doing and being. And a nice way to describe that, or a simple way to describe that, is doing is when we're in a reflection, the reflection of something. We get caught up in the doing. So in the doing, there's two. And in the being, there's no reflection. There's only one. So I'll explain it to you this way. And I'll do it physically, emotionally, mentally, and I'll talk you through it. If I ignore my physical center, or I don't know about it, and I'm going about my body, living my life, moving as I do, doing all the things I need to do, but my body is not integrated, is not working as one, what happens is that certain parts of my body start to overwork and become dominant, and other parts of my body begin to underwork and they weaken. So it doesn't mean they're weak in power, and let me explain that in a minute. So a lot of times people throw themselves out of balance in their body. So they'll hyperextend the knee joints back. So now I'm passively leaning into my knee joints. It means I lean into my heels. Now, if you're standing right now, I want you to do that. Stop in your sway. I want you to passively lean into your knee joints and then just let your weight go into your heels. Okay? So you're locking joints. That makes your bum stick out. I'm exaggerating so you see. That makes the bum stick out. Very much like Donald Trump. Donald Trump stands like this. If you're ever wondering what, this is what he's doing. So, but what happens is that it sticks my bum out. It makes my lower back really tight. My thighs disengage. My pelvic floor, my abdominal wall disengages. Now, my body, to stop me from falling over, it tightens the shoulders to try and pull me back. And that tightness of the shoulders makes me stick my chin out, so it makes me compress in the neck. And again, that creates a tension in the neck and shoulders, tension in the lower back, tension in the back of the legs. So that's me locking into my body. But what happens is that some muscles overwork, other muscles underwork. You can come out of that now back into your sway. So that becomes, certain muscles become dominant. So it's like being right-handed, being dominantly right-handed. Or the back becomes very dominant. You're doing 100 things in a day with your body. Let's say you got to do 100 things. Your back dominates those 100 things. So of the 100 things, your back is is working 80 times, 80% of them. Your back is always working. Where if you bend your knees, as an example, you work your thighs, and your back has to work less. But that's if you're sharing the load. I know everybody. I know there's a lot of logical stuff, but hear me out. So the imbalance is that some of my body is overworking, other parts of my body are underworking, and in that, it creates a separation. My shoulders are moving away from my rib cage. My hips are moving away from my spine. My knees are moving away from my feet. So what happens is that it starts to imbalance the muscles, the ligaments. You compress on the joints, and basically we start to collapse. Everything starts to collapse down. And what people don't like that. So when you start to collapse, people don't like that. So then what they do is they start to prop. They'll prop themselves up. So they're in this battle between collapsing down and not liking that, and then propping themselves up. And that just perpetuates muscles overworking, other muscles underworking. So now that's two. The body's not working as one, it's working as two. Some are overworking, some are underworking. Now, how do you get the body working as one? Then what we did, center your feet, little soft knee, come into your center, and then come into your center of gravity, and then notice how you feel all your muscles spontaneously moving in your center of gravity, where they spontaneously tone and release, and they do it fluidly. So now all your muscles, joints, and ligaments are working as one. Now, the more you get into that, and the more you engage that way, you find yourself not always in the doing of your body, but you find yourself in the being of your body. So noticing that spontaneous sway, as your muscles are spontaneously toning and releasing, you can be in that. You can be in the oneness of that. You're letting yourself be in that. You're not controlling. You're just being. Everybody get that? And the more you come into the being in your body, then you got to go about your day and you got to do all the things that you got to do with your body. But if you do it from a place of being, now you're in the oneness of your body, and then you're going to live the everyday life in the doing of what you need to do, but it's coming from a place of oneness. So therefore you're grounded, less tension, way less tension. You got that beautiful rise up through. That gives you tone, it gives you mobility in the joints, and then it gives you flexibility in your body. So that allows you to be adaptable. So your body is far more adaptable in your day. Basically, you got a lot more energy. Okay, it's wonderful, but you're in the being of it. At an emotional level, just checking for questions. I'm assuming everybody's actually doing the practice, so you've no time to be throwing out a question. I'll just keep going. So now, at an emotional level, again, there's that two, and then there's the one. So if we're in the emotions of our feelings, is the emotions push and pull. You're emoting. So you're pumping out or you're pulling in. And there's that push and pull. There's the struggle. There's the fight. Anytime it's emotional, there's the fight in it. Where when you're in the feeling of it, there is no fight. It's just the feeling of it. It's a different thing. You could be feeling sad, and if you're just feeling it, there is no fight. You're just in the feeling of it. You can allow yourself to be authentic in it. If it's authentically how you feel, well, then there's a rightness to that. And that's the authentic sadness, because it's truly how you feel. You're not fighting it. Equally, you're not any less for feeling sad. You're actually more, because it's authentically how you feel. It's the most natural and beneficial way to feel it. Equally, if you're happy and you're authentically in it and you're allowing yourself to feel happy, now you can feel the fullness of it. And because of the authenticity in it, you feel it greater. Where if you're in emotions, is you feel sad, but you're fighting the sadness. Okay, now there's two things. You're feeling sad and you're not allowing yourself to genuinely feel it. You're fighting it all the time. So now you don't get to feel the natural state of it, the authenticity of it, because you're in the struggle of it. So that's exhausting. And it's the struggle that's exhausting. It's that two-ness, it's that experience of separation, which is going to exhaust you. Where if you allow yourself to just let yourself feel what you're genuinely feeling without the struggle, then all you're doing is one thing. And you can be in that. And then, then you're in the being of it. And then there's a multitude of beautiful experiences within all of us. There's a beautiful range of feelings that we all have. And some can be very basic. You got these higher states, and there's a wide range of feelings within us. If you think about it this way, think about a tuning to the chakras or a tuning to truths. Each truth has a resonant feeling. And as you feel it and you feel the truth of it, it gives you an awful lot of energy. So again, there can be joy, there can be peace, there can be excitement, there can be contentment, a sense of commitment, a couple of the more negative, not bad, but negative states is pessimism. Anger is shame, as an example, is all these have their natural state where we're authentically in them. And the more authentic we can be with them, is it gives us the opportunity to learn what we need to learn and also be in the authenticity of it. It's that emotional fighting of it, that's what's exhausting, because then we're in the emotions rather than the feeling, coming into the oneness. So now imagine coming into your energetic body and being able to feel all that you're feeling and feeling it in an authentic way. The good, the bad, and the upside down. But you're not fighting it. So now that's the challenge, is the more you stay in your center of gravity, the more you stay in your breath, what you're doing is giving yourself a greater and greater sense of space to explore the range of yourself and slowly let go of the suffering, letting go of the fight and the struggle. Okay? It's a beautiful experience. Not always easy, but a beautiful experience. But anyway, back to the doing and then the being. Still no questions. Okay, so now the mind is, and I love describing this, and most of you will have heard it, but I'll explain it again. The room you're in right now is your mind. And then there's going to be a wall, a window, a door, or a picture in that room. I want you to look at it and then recognize that that is your mind screen. So that's where all the thoughts are. So there's all the thoughts. Okay? So now you're not your thoughts. Now the reason why you're not your thoughts is, what's the longest thought you've ever had? What's the longest thought you've ever had? Moments. They don't last very long. And that's why you're not your thoughts, is because it's not constant. What you truly are is something that is constant. Your thoughts are not constant. They come and go. So that allows you to detach from your thoughts. You come away from the thoughts and then you recognize the room itself. That's called the mind field. And you're opening your mind. When you hear somebody say, open your mind, what they're talking about is come away from the thoughts and become aware of the mind field. And that's you opening your mind. And that mind field is very much like the physical ground in your body. Coming into that calmness in the pause at the end of your exhale, that's the energetic ground on an energetic level. So coming into the mind field, that's the ground of your mind itself. Now, you come into the mind field and you stay there for a little while and you realize there's a part of yourself that's not your thoughts, but there's the watcher of the thoughts. So if you use your senses, the watcher of the thoughts, the listener of the thoughts, the feeler of the thoughts, that part of yourself that is awareness itself, consciousness. Now that's your mental center. Let's do a little example. So can you all close your eyes now? Close your eyes, and I'm going to get you to keep your eyes closed for 15 seconds. And then there are 18 people plus myself, 19 people here at the moment. We're going to listen to 19 people being silent together. Now close your eyes, please. 15 seconds. Okay. Again, you let your eyes open now. Okay. And in that time did you recognize in your own silence, you got a sense of presence within that. And that sense of presence is the presence within your awareness. That's your consciousness. And that's your consciousness of being. That's your presence of being. So at a mental level, you center yourself in your awareness and you come into your presence of being. And the more you can attune yourself to your presence of being, there's the doing. All your thoughts back and forward, that's the doing of your thoughts. But right there in the middle is the presence of being. And the more you center yourself in your presence of being, it's like the physical. You're swaying around your center of gravity, like your breath. You're flowing around the flow of your breath, coming into that beautiful calmness. And then as you flow around your thoughts, it's always around the center of your consciousness of being. You're attuning to that being within yourself. And that's you coming into your mental center. It's you coming into the oneness. So two-ness, oneness. And the more you center yourself in that, you still engage with your thoughts. You're still engaging with your thoughts. The only thing is, you're not treating them as your absolute reality. That's how you engage with your everyday life. But you got to find a constant. Your being, that consciousness within you is the constant. So now you flow around that constant. And then you're coming into the oneness of being within yourself. At a physical level, at an energetic level, at a mental level. Now, it's also an intuitive level. What do I mean by that? I'll describe it this way. Is when you were in the silence and you were attuning, you got that lovely sense of presence within. There was no thought. There was just awareness and the presence within your awareness. As you follow your awareness and the presence within it, that's you in your intuitive self. It's a direct line to your consciousness itself, your awareness itself. There is no thought process. There is no thinking about it. It's just awareness itself. You understand? Now, as you go about your day, okay, try this bit of fun, is all the rooms you go into, the people you meet, the situations you find yourself in, can you center yourself physically in all the rooms, with all the people, in all the situations? The first thing you do when you enter a room or meet a new person or deal with a new situation is you come into your physical center of gravity and then stay in it for as long as you can and follow your intuition, follow the rightness of it. And then notice if your body starts to brace up, your body's bracing up for something. You don't necessarily need to try and, what was that all about? You just notice that if your body braces up, you undo the brace, you just come back to your center of gravity and observe how your response changes. Where if you brace up, you respond one way. If you release the brace, you can respond more intuitively. You're staying in your center and then you respond from there. And you find that you respond in new ways and creative ways and ways that you never thought of because you're allowing yourself to just flow naturally in them. So your authenticity comes out in those responses. And because you're in the oneness of it, sometimes people can be a bit anxious about, God, if I let myself be unfiltered, God knows what would come out. I'd be afraid if I went around speaking the truth to everybody, or if I was constantly honest all the time, how would people handle that? is that some of the fears of people allowing themselves just to be unfiltered and free in themselves. But if you come into your center and you let yourself sway and let yourself just engage with it, it's a very nice feeling. It's a lovely feeling of connection. So you're most likely, you're going to have something that's going to come out from a place of connection, not a place of disconnection. And if you look at the micro movements that you're doing in your body, the micro movements in your breath, the micro movements in your awareness. So you're allowing a little release all the time. You're not exploding onto the seam. You know, you're not just going to let it all rip. You're letting that spontaneity out little by little by little. There's no rush for anything. You savor the lovely experience. So now you're doing that at a physical level. Now bring your breath into it. Is your breathing. You're coming to the pause at the end of your exhale. It's a lovely calmness. You come to the pause at the peak of your inhale. There's a lovely lightness in that. There's a spaciousness and a lightness in it. So now you're bringing a lighter energy into the rooms of your life, into the people of your life, and the situations of your life. What would happen if you allowed yourself to communicate a little bit more lightly within yourself? What's going to come out? Who's going to come out? And you let that come through your words and your actions and your deeds. And it's all small little things along the way. It's very, very nice. But it tells a story. And the story that's coming out is your truth story. It's your story from a place of oneness. But it comes out a little and a little and a little. Rather than spilling out the hurt story. Because if we feel separated, that disconnection, that two-ness, is that encourages our hurt story. What do I mean by that? A simple description of pain is if you experience pain, it hurts. You break skin, you break a bone. Emotionally, somebody tells you, I don't love you. Somebody you respect intellectually says you're stupid or calls you stupid. It's that experience of separation that hurts. So literally, pain is the experience of separation. So anytime we feel that separation, it hurts. If the pain becomes too much, we start to fight with it. We get rigid with it. And that hurt, that fighting with the hurt is suffering. And we're perpetuating the suffering the more we struggle with it. You understand? So now you're coming into a oneness. You're coming into a connection, physically, energetically, and mentally. So now as you stay in that connection and you let it out little by little, is rather than communicating your hurt story, you're communicating your truth story. You're coming into your authenticity with yourself. And it's little by little. You're sharing more of how you feel. You're sharing more of what your true thoughts are, what your real voice speaks, what your real eyes see, what you're truly feeling in whatever situation. But you're doing it little by little in micro movements, and it feels really nice because it feels authentic. Sometimes it isn't always easy in the sense of you're feeling something that's challenging or it's a strong sensation, but you treat it exactly how you would approach a posture. You're coming into a posture. Ground yourself, you yield, come into your mobility, and then you move into your flexibility. Now you're finding the edge of your posture, the limit where you can hold it all together, but you're being really challenged. But then you hold the edge until it becomes easier, and then you move a little deeper into the posture, a bit deeper into your body. But you're always holding that edge where you stay grounded. You've got your mobility, so your root and rise, and then you've got your flexibility. So you're always holding the integrity of your body and your alignment. But little by little, you go a little bit further, and you're incrementally increasing your intensity, your strength, things like that. You could do that at an emotional, energetic level, that you're allowing yourself to feel something. I'll give you an example. I love this one. I always ask people on teacher training courses, does everybody know their pain tolerance? Everybody's hand goes up. Yes, I know my pain tolerance. I know how much I can take. I go, okay. So does everybody know their pleasure tolerance? And less than half of the hands go up. Now, the ones who say yes normally say it with a grin, because if you know your pleasure tolerance, is you know a lot about yourself. So, so now think about this: is okay. You know your pain tolerance. What about your pleasure tolerance? What about if you allowed yourself to feel calm, or a little bit of peace, or a little bit of joy, or a little bit of contentment, or a little bit of excitement, and anything you want, pick it all, anyone. But you only let yourself feel this amount of it. Now there's a discipline, like a posture. Can you feel a little bit more of it? Can you feel a little bit more of it? Can you feel it more? Can you allow more energy to be into it, more awareness to be in it? Is how big can you allow something to feel within you? Everybody get that? So what you're doing is that while you're building true strength and power in your body at an energetic level, you're building true strength and power at an energetic level. Your ability to feel and feel a wide range of things, that is your human experience. And ultimately, you want to feel the full range of your humanity, the full range of your human experience. And the fact is, you're going to feel it anyway. This life delivers all the experiences of life within this life. You're going to feel it all. And the question is, are you going to struggle with it all? Are you going to be in the pain of it all? Or are you going to find the way to connect to it and live the oneness and the truth of it within you? And everybody has that capability. It's just understanding how it works and then incrementally bringing yourself more and more into that space. And then the same at a mental level is that you're able to hold a particular state of mind. A nice way to describe this, it's like you root down and you rise up. So what you're creating is extension. You're elongating. And that as you elongate your body, you're activating the natural integrity of your body. You're bringing the muscles to their full tone. You're bringing the joints to their full mobility and retain its adaptability. Okay, very important. What am I saying? Got to try and remember this now. I know I'm talking at a mental level. What am I saying? At a mental level. At a mental level, somebody going to help me here? Hi, Paul. How you getting on? Okay, so at a mental level, I know what I was saying. Extension. So extension, extending the spine. That's really where you want to get to, is getting that spine lovely and open. All your joints are working for that. All your limbs are working for that. With your breath, you want to extend out your breath. So if you want to extend out something you're feeling, extend out your breath. Feel it, and then lengthen your breath into it. It allows you to hold it greater. Now, at a mental level, holding different states of mind, it's your ability to be able to come into that state and then hold it for longer and longer and longer. You want to extend it out. So if you want to extend anything out, is you have to be able to hold it in the one place. And as you can hold it in the one place and allow yourself to move freely in it, it allows you to continuously be in that state. Do you understand? So as you come more into the awareness within your mind, is think about your mental center, is the mind screen, the mind field, and the awareness within. Now imagine taking all the qualities of your mind, all those different states, and filling your mind field with states, not with thoughts, but states. So a state of joy. You have a state of joy in your mind field, and it's just part of your mind itself, that state of joy. You've attuned to the frequency, you stay attuned to the frequency, and it's retained in your mind field. So here's your awareness, here's the joy, and then the joy is all permeate your mind field. It's not about a thought, it's about the state itself. So now, rather than trying to control your thoughts, is you control your awareness, and then you control what you put into the center of your awareness, and there's all the different states. Do you understand? Now, I'm gonna play around with this a little bit. It's not always about the joy and the peace and the calm. They're wonderful, and yes, it is about those. but it's about your human experience. Now, your human experience, it's the full range of your human experience. So now if I asked you, is it possible, I'll say it this way, is it possible for you to be angry but not cause any harm? Is it possible for you to be angry but not cause any harm? And the answer is yes. And the reason why the answer is yes is because anger is a natural state within us. It's part of our humanity. It's part of our human experience. Is if you notice the qualities of anger, one of them is that there's clarity. And it's very hard to tell a lie when you're angry. And it's always about boundaries. A lot of it's always about boundaries being crossed. So it gives you a great sense of clarity. It gives you a great sense of truth in yourself, and it gives you a great sense of boundaries. As an example, now, if you're not using your anger on somebody to attack somebody, you're not causing them harm. If you're angry and you're not using it to attack yourself, you're not causing yourself any harm. But what it is that you're allowing yourself to feel that experience of your humanity in yourself, but you can be at peace with it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to struggle with it. You don't have to use it to cause harm. It's just part of your experience. We all get angry sometimes, but we don't have to fight with it, and we don't have to use it for harm. It just tells us something. It's another form of our human experience. So let me ask you a question. Is in your mind field, where does that state of anger reside? Where it's at peace, where it is part of your living experience rather than something that you need to exclude or deny or try to control when it comes in. That you can peacefully just feel the anger of it, learn what you need to learn, and then move into that learning, but yet you don't have to be wrong in your anger. You don't have to be, you're not wrong at times to feel angry, because is it how you authentically feel? Yes, it is. I authentically feel this. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. What is it that you need to learn in it? And how can you step into that learning? And in that, then you can let go of the anger state, but it's part of our human experience. So why does it have to leave? Why can't it have its place of residence in your mind field like every other human state? All the different sides of your character and your nature that makes you up. Does that make sense? So that you don't have to be wrong in your humanity and your human experience. It's just how you attune to it. It's how you connect to it. And it's how you stay at one with it. How you speak the truth of it rather than communicating the hurt of it. Because if you're in the hurt of it, there's a strong possibility we're going to hurt somebody else or break something. But if that's not the case, well, then you're just in the authenticity of it. It comes and then it goes. Like many human experiences, they arise and fall at times. And that's just our humanity. Now, why am I saying all this? Because we're talking about doing and being. So the more you allow yourself to be in the being of yourself, you're in the doing of life. Being while engaging with the doing of life. So you need to be able to facilitate the authenticity of what your experience is. The good, the bad, the ugly, the negative, the positive, whatever it is how can you facilitate yourself in that, in the doing of it, but in the being of it is where you don't cause harm. And you're in the authenticity. So while you feel it, it comes, you have the experience, learn what you need to learn, and then you can let go of the charge of it. You can just let it go. And no harm is caused. And you've learned something from it. And you're refining it as you go along. And then you'll find that those negative states that used to cause a lot of hurt don't cause hurt anymore. Then those negative states don't get brought up as much because they're not required as much. And you find that it's like you don't muddy the water as things settle. And as you settle, the more peaceful states come in, the higher states of consciousness come in, because the lower states of consciousness is rest. They find a place of peace where they don't get ruffled. But you have to allow yourself to go through the humanity of your experience. There's no way around it. There just isn't. So whether you want to do yoga in your bedroom or go and do yoga in a cave or do yoga when you're in work, it's all the same practice. It's all the same. And there are no ways around it. You just got to be able to find a way to engage with it and move through your experience, irregardless of what your life is, what your situation is. So it's the same for everybody. Okay, now I'm waffling on here. Does Paul have a question for me? Is that the same for the charge? Is okay, let me see, engage with the charge. Okay, so Paul is asking is, I'll let me say this first, is think about when we're hurt. There's different levels of hurt. Some hurts are light and some hurts are really hurt. But within that, then there can be the struggle, the struggle, the suffering within it, the fight within it. And the struggle can be a low struggle. They struggle a bit more, and they're struggling all the way. So now that field of struggle has a range. So there's our little struggles, and then more, and there's the big struggles. So that's the field of charge. That's the charge where it's like we brace in the body. We emotionally brace in the feeling, or we brace in our mind. We can bullishly try to be a particular way. We're bracing. That's engaging with the field of charge. And that's what Paul's asking. Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. What I just described, Paul, describes how to disengage from the charge, to drop the charge. Let me explain it this way. So everybody gets the field of charge, yeah? So now think about this. On a scale of 1, which is a small charge, 2, 3, how many do you have? And again, some of you might say a lot. Some of you might say, oh, not that much. Generally, it can be quite a lot for most people. And what I mean by that is think about all the rooms in your life. Think about all the people in your life. Think about all the situations in your life. And then think about all the little things in those rooms, those people, and those situations that bother you, that get in your nerves, that just it just bothers you. So all those little things, there'll be lots of little things, but as you go up to 4 and 5, there's a little less, but they bother you more. You hit 6 or 7, there's a little less, but they really piss you off. By the time you're up at 7, 8, and 9, there's even less, but those things aren't funny. Those things you're super serious about. It's like these are the things that I'm really struggling with. There's not many, but they take a lot of effort to deal with them. So you've got your range in the charge. Okay. So now think about a charge of 3. So the range of 3, 1, 2, 3. So in the range of 3, the field of 3, think of it like a field. The field of 3 in the room, people, situations, is imagine you could see them all as a field, and each thing that bothered you was like a little dot. So you got all these dots in the charge of 3 in the field. Is recognize that charge is the same for all of them. So you may have 50 things in that field that bother you, whatever it is, whatever the number is. But the charge, the irritation, the annoyance, the frustration that you feel is the same for all of them. All these different things, same charge, same reaction. You get it? Now, you could go around and you could try and fight and tackle each one of those charges. And you'd bloody exhaust yourself. You're going around all day, struggling with them all. You'd just be distracting. What would happen if you come into your center physically, energetically, mentally, and that you began to drop the charge of 3? Not all the things. You don't focus on all the things that are in the field. You focus on the field itself. And you get to a level within yourself where you can drop the charge of 3 in the field. You can drop the field of 3 itself. So here's the field of 3, all the 50 dots. When you drop to the field, what happens to all the dots? They all fall out. They all drop out of the field because you're not resisting them anymore. You're not feeding them your energy. You're not paying attention to them because you've dropped the field. So now, and we talked about intuitively, spontaneously being in yourself, you're going about your day in the different rooms, different people, different situations, and people are doing things, situations are creating things where you normally get annoyed. It's your field of 3. You normally get annoyed, but because you're not feeding that charge, your response is different than it normally would be. You create a new response rather than have the old reaction. Is you actually respond more differently. So when somebody does something or says something or the situation creates an annoyance, you find yourself staying calmer. You find yourself communicating more clearly. You find yourself being more adaptable because you're more grounded in yourself. Your energy's rising, you're lighter in yourself, so that allows you to see more options. It doesn't feel so heavy. And because of your flexibility in yourself, that gives you more space. That gives you more choices at a physical level, energetic, emotional level, at a mental level. It is you're drawing on yourself and the power of yourself to become far more adaptable in those situations. And spontaneously, solutions come to you that you might not have thought of before or done before because you've dropped the field of 3. And all those dots that fall out, they just drop out. So it's a much more direct approach to focus on one area and then make that area your center and then work from there rather than trying to deal with everything in separation. Because then it's like dealing with 100 different problems and fighting 100 different battles. It's exhausting. Is place yourself in your center, and that's where you work from. And then you begin to control the field. Does everybody understand? It's very powerful. It's the difference between linear growth and exponential growth. Linear growth is dealing with one thing at a time. Exponential growth is dealing with many things at a time. Many things at a time. And that's why exponential growth is super powerful. It's also why at the moment with the coronavirus it's such a terrifying thing, is because it has exponential potential. And it can cause a lot of harm very fast because it multiplies. It's not going 1 and 2, it's multiples of multiples of multiples. And that's why we've got to do what we've got to do. And to take it, there's no easy way around this now, is because we're dealing with that potential state until we find a way to deal with it in a potential way. So if you think about a vaccine is, once we find it, is exponentially we give it to everybody. And that solves the issue. Until then, we've got to find ways to slow it down and maybe find treatments that can work in large spurts, but doesn't give us the full solution until we find a vaccine. Or they talk about herd mentality or herd immunity. But there's a heavy price to pay for herd immunity, especially with this one. There'd be a heavy price to pay. So I doubt if any country would be willing to pay that price willingly. Some countries may pay for it unwillingly. It's just they don't have the organization, or they don't have the support structures to actually blunt that curve. And that's unfortunately the situation that we're in. But you get the idea about the exponentialness of it. Okay, so now back to your center. And the question I have for you is, now after this conversation, how important is it to stay centered? How important is it to stay in your center of gravity? Think about these small little things, but the greater meaning of them, the deeper meaning of them, and how much power is in it. The same with your breath, a little bit of breath awareness is just coming into that pace and connection, and then slowing the pace of your thoughts and shifting from emphasizing your thoughts to emphasizing your awareness. and just grounding yourself into that space more and more and more. And everything I described will unfold as you go along. Okay. Now, how are we doing? It's 7:15. Okay, Quiva. Hey, Quiva. You discussed the charge when rating it. Should you talk about the emotional charge, mental, etc.? Okay, so Quiva, we were talking about the charge, and again, that's the resistance, the fight. Is if you think about it at a physical level, think about tension in your lower back. If somebody's got a strain in their lower back and it's really tight and uncomfortable, that's a high charge. There's real, your muscles are really tightening up there. So that's a high charge. Is if your lower abdominals are weak, that's a high charge too, because of the weakness in them. Not because they're so tight, but because they're so weak. You want to even that out so that there is no bracing in the body, is that you've got tone. So emotional is the same. Is you can feel an emotion, but how much you're fighting with that emotion is the charge within it. So when you begin to recognize the charge in it, you look, I'm fighting in this. Is what if I just put the fight down and just let myself feel it? I'm not saying it's always easy, but even just recognizing that my struggle in this is causing me more stress sometimes than just allow myself to feel it. And that if I let myself feel it, I'm only doing one thing. I'm just letting myself feel what I feel. I'm not fighting with it all the time. And then there's the range of how much we fight. So yes, Cleva, it's exactly the same at an emotional level as it is a mental level or a physical level, but equally a mental level too. And I'll use this as an example at a mental level. I'm going to talk about denial. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Some of you might have said no. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Denial. Don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so what do I mean like this at a mental level? Is sometimes it's difficult to be honest with ourselves about what we're thinking, because what we're thinking can be difficult to take the intensity of it. It can hurt, or it can be very strong and intense. So it's easier to deny it than to let ourselves be honest with what we're thinking. Does everybody get that? Okay. So denial is a form of protecting ourselves, and it can be part of the struggle. So we use denial as a way of fighting ourselves. So the more you deny, the greater the charge is, if that makes sense. So when you're denying something really strongly, is that's telling you the charge that's in it, if that makes sense. Just as an example at a mental level, where if we put the denier down and we said, rather than focusing on what I'm denying, is really what am I truly thinking here? Is it allows us to begin to recognize what our thoughts are, rather than make the effort into denying our thoughts, if that makes sense. Now, the true purpose of denial is can be lost. Just while we're talking about this, excuse me, denial sometimes can be seen as something that's very negative and corrosive, and it's suppressive and restricts us. But the real power of denial, when we're using it in its most powerful way, is, I was talking about this about the second chakra there on one of the videos, is when you stay grounded and you come into the seat of your power, so you're grounded in yourself, and something comes along that you find challenging, that might unground you, the real power of your denial is you just deny it. You refuse to react to that situation. And what you're doing is you're using the power of denial to deny the reaction, or to deny the being thrown off center. And that's the real power of your denial, is you deny something. You refuse to be moved by something that you don't want to be moved by. Does that make sense? So you're using your denial to hold yourself consciously in your ground, and I deny that. I refuse to react. I will respond. Now that's the power of denial, but if we turn it against ourselves, is then we begin to deny the things that's inside us. And if you think about this, is we're not allowing ourselves to then see truly the what's going on within us. And one of the things we hide within us is not just our hurt, it's our richness. I'll say it this way. A lot of people would say that they lost their innocence. Oh, I lost my innocence years ago. Nobody ever loses their innocence. What they do is they put their innocence away. They hide it. They protect it. So a young child is walks into a room, gets a bang on the head. Get a bang on the head, they'll cry and forget about it, you know. And then if it happens enough times, at one point, before the child walks into the room, they'll anticipate the bang on the head. So now the child walks into the room minus their innocence. Now they're walking in with the expectation of the bang on the head. So in that is they've taken their innocence out of the room. So what happens to our innocence is that we withdraw our innocence as we go through life, because our innocence, while wonderful, it causes a lot of hurt, because while it gives us the newness of an experience, is constantly in the newness of an experience, is sometimes you need to learn the lay of the land. So taking our innocence out of the room is we take it. We feel like we're losing it. And the more we withdraw our innocence into ourselves, at one point, we can take our innocence so far removed from ourselves that we put it in a place within ourselves that we forget where we've put it ourselves. We've protected it so much, we feel like we've disconnected from it. And then people will say, I've lost my innocence. There's no more innocence. It's not true. Everybody has their innocence that they're born with. It still resides within. And one of the ways we protect that is with denial. I don't know what you're talking about. And we can deny, and one of the things in our denial is it's a form of protecting ourselves. So sometimes our denial is protecting our hurt, but other times our denial is protecting our richness, the real richness within us. So now what would happen if you centered yourself and come into that beautiful space within yourself, and then you allowed your innocence to be consciously present? Because when we're kids, that doesn't come with the awareness, the self-awareness that we have when we're adults. So what would happen if you allowed your innocence to come out and be free again, but now you're in the innocence with awareness? Everybody get that? And that innocence with awareness, now you're in new eyes, because that's what innocence is. It gives you new eyes. It lets you look at things with new eyes. When you look at things with new eyes, you're seeing newness. When you're seeing newness, you're seeing things you haven't seen before. So you start to see connections that you hadn't seen before. Every time you see one of those connections, it's an insight. Now you're allowing yourself to experience insight. Then there's the insight into the moment. You can look into yourself in the past, and then you can have insight into the past. Everybody get that? And then you can look into the future, and you can have insight into the future. So you have insight right now, you have hindsight from the past, and you have foresight for the future. What would happen if you allowed your innocence to consciously be present within yourself, let yourself see things anew, let yourself see the connections and the insights within it, and within that, you're freeing yourself from your suffering right now by staying true to yourself insightfully, stepping into your wisdom, stepping into your truth. As your past comes in, is you're allowing yourself to, in hindsight, see the truth of your past. So you're slowly letting go of the struggle, the charge, the field. You're slowly letting go of the hurts as you learn what you need to learn. And you're freeing yourself up, allowing your authenticity to come back now as a conscious adult, like you had when you were a child, but this time it's with self-awareness. So that as you look into your foresight, is while there are the dangers of life, there's always dangers of life, is we're not always looking at the dangers of life, we're looking at the foresight, the connection, the wisdom. What are the patterns of wisdom of life? How do we link into those patterns of wisdom and observe those patterns of wisdom in the foresight of our own life? And that's part of what you engage in. You're in the insight of the moment, speaking, living the truth. You can see the truth of it in the foresight, and you can see the truth of it in the hindsight. And in that, you're beginning to understand and observe the story of your life and the truth of your own being, the truth of your own experience, what that means to you, and you begin to refine your purpose within it. You begin to see the things that are naturally true for you and that you're naturally attuned to. And you're coming into the being of that. There's the awakening of it, and then you're coming more and more into the conscious being of it. And that's the core of yourself that you engage then in the doing of life. And the decisions that you make in the doing of your life come from the foundation of clarity of being within you and the knowing of your own truth, the knowing of your own self, and the rightness of that. Does everybody get that? It's super duper. Okay, 7:26, 4 minutes to go. So we're just going to wind up. Yeah, I answered that, Quiva. I'm just going to wind up. I know I've said a lot. Is if I got more questions, I will very happily break it down, slow it down, tease it out. I'll go anywhere you want. Throw them out. I can tease it out 100 different ways. And again, I can waffle on all the time, and I will. But the more questions that come out is I want to answer every one of those questions to the best of my ability and tease it out with you. And it's the fun and the engagement of that, because God knows where it will go with the questions that come out. So as we settle more into this, is feel free to fire out the questions. You'll notice that regardless of the subject we're talking about, it's always talking about yoga, it's always talking about unity, and it's always flowing around that circle. So it doesn't matter what aspect we're talking about, it's always within that range of where's the connection in it, where's the oneness in it, and it's just putting the map of yoga into perspective, so you can see how it all fits together. Okay, so thank you all for turning up today. This is officially my first one, yeah, I can't wait. Another one's going to come on Wednesday, and then on Friday. They will all be as intense as this is. That's the idea. We'll see where it goes. Now, of this video, what I'm going to do is I'll edit it. So what I'll do is the whole video will be up. It'll stay up. But what I'll do is I'll pull out different parts of it and put them as small videos as well. And again, feel free to go back in and out of them as you need to. I know I've said a lot, so think about all the different steps. If you've got one step of it, what did he say? What's the next step? Go in and play the next step, and then tease that out. And it'll come to you as we're going along. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, Virgo.